Good evening and a warm, heartiest welcome to each one of you who are joining through Zoom YouTube platforms from around the world. It is indeed a great privilege to have you all here. What better way to ignite change than through conversation that spark ideas, challenges, norms, and sets actions into motion? A very warm welcome to another session of Ignite Talks, a powerful monthly fireside dialogue series under the Alliance program of International Youth Alliance for Peace. This isn't just another webinar. We call this a fireside talk for a reason because it's designed to feel warm, personal, real, and reflective. Just like you would gather around a fire to share stories, wisdom, listen, learn, reflect, and act. Today marks another session of a series of 8 powerful fireside talks, each followed by a regional cross-border discussion. I would like to remind to all our participants to please keep yourself muted during the talk, and you can unmute yourself during the final Q&A. So before we start our session, let's take a quick moment to open our chats and do a 1-minute checking. Share one word to describe how you're feeling as we kick off this journey together. Y'all can open your chats and y'all can share one word to describe how you're feeling as we kick off this journey together. All right, I can see. They're excited. I would like all the participants to tell how they feel about today's session so that we can go ahead as well. Okay, so then thank you so much for those who mentioned their responses to the chat box. Now, it's the moment we have been waiting for. It is my heartfelt gratitude and absolute pleasure to introduce our facilitator for the Ignite Talk series today. Today, we are having with us Mrs. Nilanka Vijayanayake. She is the International Development Specialist, a gender advocate, and a strategic leader. Mrs. Nilanka is a senior international development specialist with over 30 years of experience leading holistic development projects, including gender, social inclusion, and child protection across South Asia. As the former country head of the USAID's Clean Cities Blue Ocean to Sri Lanka and to Maldives, and as director of programs of World Vision Lanka, she has successfully managed multi-sectoral programs and mentored diverse teams to drive sustainable impact. With master's degree in development studies and public policy management, Ms. Nilanka is a passionate advocate for women's leadership and youth empowerment. She brings a strategic participatory approach to every engagement, ensuring inclusive and impactful dialogue. Today, she facilitates this session to inspire and equip young leaders in Sri Lanka, Nepal, and Afghanistan to champion gender equity and transformative leadership. I would like to now warmly welcome Ms. Nilanka to address our gathering about the topic on women under the UN leadership, overcoming barriers across the borders. Ms. Nilanka, the stage is for yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Nidumi.
No worries.
And thank you for the kind words. Hello, everyone, and I'm so excited today to meet all of you. especially the Ignite Talk series, the Ignite. It has a huge meaning. So I hope this discussion today would ignite a whole lot of discussions, thoughts, and also it would help us in the long run. So as I start, let me just share a small story with you. Once there was this father and son who was traveling in their car, and suddenly they met with an accident. Unfortunately, the father did not survive, but the son was soon rushed to the hospital. So, due to the severity of his injuries, he was straight away taken to the operation theater. And at the operation theater, the doctor came. The doctor looked at the child and said, "Oh no, I cannot operate this child because this is my son." Whom do you think this doctor is? Yeah, you're right. The doctor is none other than this child's mother. Well, if you guess this correct, you are one of those very few people to get this answer correct. In Boston University, this story was presented to a group of undergraduates, and only 14% of them were able to get the answer correct. Nelum, we need to go with our slides. And so the only 14% of them got the answer correct. That means at least 86% of them did not think it's the mother. The doctor was the mother. They had different vivid imagination of who this doctor was. Next slide. So what's the problem? Mostly it's when we talk about gender roles, there is huge stereotype taking place. So when we think of the doctor, usually comes to our mind is a male. The heavy work, like for an example, the police constable or a firefighter, or let's say a farmer. There are certain job types that we think this is the male role. And at the same time, like certain soft jobs such as a teacher, a nurse, certain jobs that does not require huge heavy work, we think it is the women's job. So whether we understand or not, whether we think about this or not, we are in a journey of stereotyping these gender roles. Mostly the stereotyping take place, whether it's a feminine type of job or whether it's a masculine type of job. Based on that, we think about, okay, this particular job would be, that means a man's job or a woman's job. So let me just ask this question from you. Who is your mind model? In the sense, like when you think about your role model or in your mind, there are certain models that you look up to, you learn from, that there are things that you get certain understanding from. Who are these mind models that you have right now? If you look into many cases, the role models that we have or the mind model that we have are males, isn't it? Usually the leadership is very much connected with the masculine. We think the leaders need to be aggressive. They need to be they need to have the command. They need to be guiding the people. They need to bring everybody to a common vision. And a male would do it much more better than a female. So in our minds, we think leaders, when we think about leaders, usually are, to our mind, we get a male person. This is the stereotyping that we talk about. Let's go further. So, what is the region or what's happening in the world to change this uh, whole scenario? There are certain common regional trends which promotes women's leadership in South Asia. Each country have come up with their own policies. They have come up with their own opportunities for women to step up and come out of the shackle that they are. For an example, there are legal quotas for women in politics. For an example, in Nepal, they have 33% representation in the parliament, women's. And in Sri Lanka, 25%, it's mandatory, 25% of the females to be in the local government body. And in also in countries like Pakistan, they have 17% that they have reserved for females. So different countries come up with their own mechanisms and policies to support women in leadership. But however, if we look into the global and the regional picture, the situation is slowly improving, but it's not huge change. The global leadership gap shows only 26.7 parliamentarians are women. This is according to UN in 2023 research done. And also, like, if you take worldwide, globally, there are only less than 10% women CEOs. Also, there is significant underrepresentation in leadership across the region. It's not in one country, but across the region. Very interesting, it's like there are the 500 biggest businesses, only 41 are led by women CEOs. So you see, although there are a lot of changes are being done, a lot of policies are brought, a lot of opportunities are given, still the scenario is changing very, very slowly. Let's look at some of the South Asia statistics in 2023. Women as a share of population is approximately 49.5%, meaning let's say 50%. Out of that, the female labor force participation is only 32%, which means the rest of the percentage is not actively engaged in the economic activity. But on contrast, if you look into the girls' education level, the secondary education enrollment of the girls are 71% of the 100%. So that's very interesting, isn't it? The tertiary education enrollment of the girls are 29.4%. And gender parity in tertiary education, it says ratio is female to male, 1 female to 0.25 males. So if you look into the education sector, we say a lot of encouragement changes are taking place where the women or the girls are taking the forefront in the education. The gender parity, especially in the tertiary education, shows that females are into tertiary education more than the boys, right? However, if you look into the women in management positions, again, the scenario is changed. In South Asia, women's representation in senior management roles reporting as low as 7%. And as of 2023, 85% of the companies in the APEC had at least one woman in senior management. So the scenarios of the entire population, you see at least 50% are women, but only 32% out of the total population are working. The rest are not actively engaged. But the education sector, the women are very interested in doing secondary higher level education. But again, when it comes to the managerial position, we see this is reflecting in a different manner. So the question is it a big deal? Why do you think women in leadership is a big deal? Why not leave them as they are? Men are doing a good job. Why is it a big deal that women need to be in leadership? Number one, the decision-making process. You know, the decision-making process of men and women are quite different. When it comes to males, they are very straightforward. In businesses, they are very competitive. Their decisions are very aggressive. They are very task oriented. So their decisions are kind of looking to the task and then delivering the task. But on the other hand, the women brings a different perspective to this. Think about your own family. How the family as an entity work. While the father goes and bring the income to the family, what is the role of the mother? We feel the empathetic nature of the mother, don't we? So the women bring certain soft areas into the management, like the listening skills, the communication, the staff care, looking into the staff, especially their finance management. It says extremely very well. So even in families, the research shows that the women at least try to reinvest 90% of their savings, meaning showing that they are financial management. So when in leadership, both men and women come together, they have very balanced decision-making processes. Areas that men don't focus, women are able to bring, especially the creativity, intuition. These areas women can bring to the table. Therefore, it becomes whole when men and women sit at the decision-making table. At the same time, very interesting, the McKinsey company, they have conducted this research in 2018, where the report was produced as delivering through diversity. They have targeted 1,000 companies in 12 countries. And the result was where there is female leadership in the management, 21% of those, 21%, they are able to bring profit than the companies who are only led by men. Well, I thought it was really interesting. The companies with females in leadership are able to produce profit 21% more than the companies who are completely led by men. So there is stronger performance base there, and also better business outcomes. And also, like, think about the role models. Seeing women inspires others. Today we have an issue where there is no many females in leadership, and also the next generation need to have inspiration, seeing females taking leadership. When I was in my previous organization, I was working in under program operations, a subdivision, and my supervisor, who was an Indian, he's Rajkumar Sarvindas. He prompted me to, when we were going through a restructuring process, actually he was ending his contract, he was going back to his country. So he prompted me to apply for a program director position. But for me, like, I was not ready for that. I had a lot of anxiety on that. I was like thinking, how would the field accept me? Because I'm not anyway directly in the development field itself. I was coming from a subdivision in the program operations. So there was quite a lot of ambiguity from my side to even to apply. But after I going through the interview process, I was selected as associate director, joining program operations, and at that time, the program in the field, there were no women actually working as program coordinators or even as program managers. The reason was the it requires them to be mobile. They need to stay out of their houses, and also the the duty or the responsibility seems very masculine. So they had to deal with the local governments. They had to work with the communities. They had to work with faith organizations. So it was kind of cumbersome and look a bit masculine. So nobody actually applied. But after me stepping into program operations, I remember I was the only female to 50 men in management. But that opened the eyes of other females. By the time I left, at least there were 5 program managers in the field, female program managers. So you need to see women going up the ladder and taking the leadership for the others to be inspired. And at the same time, the social impact. When women prioritize, they prioritize relationships, they prioritize community matters, they look into the education, the peaceability. When we work in the development sector, it's mostly that we work with women because they come forward, especially when it comes to their children, the children's future. So they are very active in discussing the economic matters, the education matters, health and nutrition matters, whatever that affect the children. So also like for the Sustainable Development Goal, the women empowerment is one of the preconditions because the women have the natural tendency to look into the social matters, the impact, and also to prioritize on that. And then the next one is that equity in action, especially when we talk about women in leadership, they look into the organizational blockages or organizational, the barriers that they have for the others to come up. And then when there are harassments, when there are other related issues for women, safety concerns, women look into that. So for the equality to be in action, it is important that women to be in the positions of power, so that they have an idea and they know what requires for the women, and then they would be delivering on that. And also it says peaceful leadership. Well, it's very straightforward. It says, the women, especially at the country level, they do not go into war with other countries, but they have very diplomatic mechanisms, negotiating with other countries, with other organizations, with other leadership to ensure the work is delivered. Finally, the untapped potential. We talked about at least 50% of the population being women, and also only 32% of the women are actively engaged in the economic activity. So the remaining untapped potentials, the talents, the resources need to be brought back into the development sector or to the production to ensure the countries have better economics. So this is why the women in leadership is a big deal. It's not only personal, but it's also organizational level, country level. There are huge benefits when the women are there in the leadership. But looking at the cross borders, there are certain prevailing issues that all these women are facing. We talk about the patriarchal norms and expectations. I conducted a research for my master's. The research was actually, my thesis was on why whether male dominance is an issue, why there are less women in top management, right? I would share some of those research findings with you. But this patriarchal norms and expectations of male dominance and uh, males taking all the decisions, women are just being submissive. So all these things are kind of a hindrance for females to step up of out their shackles. So it is easy for them to be in their comfort zone and just to let the man rules, so that they don't have to change. And then there are gender-based violence and mobility restrictions. The gender-based violence, no need to explain that, but mobility restrictions is where that if they have to travel far, if they have to travel late, there are issues. And then limited access to education, leadership roles, especially in the sectors of rural and urban, there are differences. In the urban sectors, there are a lot of access probably for education, but when it comes to rural sector, there are challenges. So who would stop going to school? Who would be continuing in school? So those are some of the family decisions sometimes are not favorable for women. The safety concerns of the children, then if you decide to come out of the challenge the prevailing systems, the social stigma you have to go through. So those are some of the common across the borders, the barriers and the challenges that women are facing. Just to share some of, my research findings in Sri Lanka context, where are we now? Out of it actually echoes the same thing. I don't want to take a lot of time because we have limited time. But if you look into the 21.4 million, 57% at least are female. And also out of that, 60% females are enrolling to university. Very encouraging. Out of that, 69% of the graduated populations are female. So when it comes to education, we see that females are always doing better than the males. However, from the labor force market, only 30% females are actively economically active. This is the Sri Lankan context. And in participation in politics, about 5%, and judiciary around 23%, and women in management perceived to be less than 10%. But there is interesting matter, which is 64% females are among professionals, so that they are not bound to go. I mean, they need to be bound to go to an office to work, but they are on their own and they can work on their own. So there are growing tendency for the professionals in Sri Lanka. In 2020, we are in 21st century. I don't know why are we still talking about women in leadership. Is it a real matter? Is it something still prevalent, right? Let's just go through why actually, what holds these women back. The concept of glass ceiling. I'm sure that you have heard about this concept, where we talk about this invisible barrier that prevents women rising certain level in their hierarchy. When we say invisible barrier, it is not just that, women are thinking, oh, there is a ceiling that I cannot go above that. It's not just from the women's side, but although we do not openly acknowledge, there are these barriers that come from gender bias decisions, especially when it comes to certain positions that we want to place people. We think, that stereotyping comes back. Okay, whether this is a male's job, whether this is a female's job. And can a female do this job? Probably not. So we do have these gender biases when we do the promotions and all. And certain institutional discriminations also there. But what happens is, some of the women lose the opportunity not only for promotion, but to get the experience in key sectors, which prevent them to climb up the ladder. Because for them to climb up the ladder, certain experiences are very important. But because the companies think, okay, a male and a female coming for an interview, both of them equally perform, but I prefer to go with the male because females probably not for leadership. Let's say sometimes we think, okay, they have to work late, they have to work hard. The females, they would be next thinking about their families, maternity, and then they would have their children. And then also probably if they have a larger workforce, a cadre, then sometimes they think, okay, the males would do better handling large staff than men. So there are like a lot of stereotypes and gender biases which prevent females to climb up in hierarchy. This not only in bond sector, but we see this issue prevailing in all the sectors. So the next slide actually talks about very interesting finding, and this is from my own thesis I have shown. This is called the leaky pipeline. I actually called it the drop. If you look into this graph, you see that men and women both come into the workforce by age of 15 to 18, right? But by 18 years, male are still continuing higher than women. And if you connect this with the education, we were saying that there is more females still doing the education, tertiary education, secondary education, but males are not. So where did these men go? Probably they are working. So this is what it shows. But at the peak point around, at the age of 1920, we see males are rising. Still females probably in their tertiary education. But by the time of 2022, 23, male are climbing up, but females, there is a drop. Where do they go? What happens to them? This is the time period mostly the women get into marriages, so they prioritize their families and they have a lot of other things to look into, and their family obligations come first. So because of that, there is a kind of a little slant drop in the workforce. By the time around 35 years, they come back, but they can never match up to the men, because by that time, they have gained a lot of experiences and they have gone very, very far away. So this leaky pipeline also a huge disadvantage for women to reach up to the top levels in management. Another interesting finding is that when we ask, in the research, to name key pressing issues for women to climb the ladder, you see 66% of them said because the priorities change after marriage. So, more than the job, the family matters first. And then the difficulty to balance both family and work obligations. It's too much for one person, you have to go to work, you have to ensure that the work targets are completed, and then you have to come home, you have to take care of your family, you have to take care of your children. The too much obligations, you cannot keep up with that. So that's the 63% says that's why they do not want to give too much to work. And then 53% feels that there is quite a lot of male dominance at workplace. So rather working on that, it's easy for us to give up on certain areas. So there are a lot of inner struggles that women are facing. It's not just the dominating factors, personal obligations, and women are not sometimes willing to come out of their comfort zones. And sometimes a lack of ambition and confidence. Stereotyping jobs, perception among men and women about women in leadership. This finding I have not shared here, but women think that men don't like to work under female bosses, but men feel it's all right. It's okay to work under female bosses. So there are perception differences, and then there are lack of role models and cooperation at home to share responsibilities. Well, going to the next one, the workplace discrimination and unpaid care. But, in organizations, it's very easy for you to say, okay, we provide equal opportunities for men and women both. If they want to climb up the ladder, whatever, we training, the capacity development, the skill, everything, we provide equal opportunity. Is that enough? Is that enough? Understanding the context of the women, if you have an agenda to promote women, you need to look into what is the gap. What is the gap? What is their issue? How can the organization be flexible in order to bring those gender sensitive policies and support system so that there would be equity? Women are struggling with family responsibilities. There are opportunity issues. Sometimes, the harassment issues, lack of flexibility from the organization. These are many cases why women drop out from the work, commitments. So, talking about strategies for inclusive leadership. What can the organizations do if they are so serious about promoting women in leadership? Gender mainstreaming. Nilu, we are in the next slide. Gender mainstreaming. This is one of the very important cases. Mainstreaming gender aspect into the structural human resource, the systems, the programs, all throughout the sectors. Then the policy changes were especially to have corporate strategies to eliminate workplace limitations to retain the talent, like as I spoke about equality and equity, right? What are the areas that women are struggling? Where needs to be the organizations need to bring the balance, right? Especially to emphasize on gender balance, not only in the management, but even in the boards, it's very important. Then gender sensitive, gender specific policies, working hours, part-time. These are some of the things that the companies could look into. Then address the weaknesses in the legislation. There are, when you look into the legal framework of the countries, they are very strong. Very strong. The harassment, the gender protection, the opportunity, they are very strong. But the implementation and the monitoring weaknesses, the reporting weaknesses make the legislation weak. So this is one of the areas that need to be looked into. Then safe space and leadership training for girls. Women should feel comfortable. They should feel safe in the environments to perform, to climb up the ladder. For an example, sometimes in the rural areas, when females are coming to the offices, the entire team support them in looking for places for them to stay, look after them, to just ensure that they are safe, they feel safe, right? So this is very important for any person to who are struggling, especially safety is one of the key concerns of females. Then engaging men as allies and also advocate for change. Men would listen to men, and if they are the advocates for change, for an example, my bosses, I had several of male bosses who prompted me and said, look, you need to go here. You need to continue your education. You need to step up. You need to challenge your own, what do you call, the walls that you have in front of you. Addressing the fears, the confidence matters, the technical capabilities, getting the core competencies. So the men, when they play this role, it is very easy for the organization, the community, the societies to come together. And then especially work-life balance is very important. Having those policies are very important. Addressing socio-physical constraints on women's mobility, local and international grooming, be intentional about coaching, network building and mentoring programs. If child care is the problem, improving the child care services, adapting policies to assist mothers, zero tolerance for sexual harassments, and giving first opportunity, give the opportunity to perform, for them to perform, break some of the barriers, thinking, the stereotypes of certain jobs, and then promote role models for women empowerment, especially in the school curriculum. We hardly learn about women heroes, but why not? There are a lot of women heroes in our countries, probably freedom fighters, some committed women who are very silent workers. So we need to have these role models. The children need to, understand it's something to become familiar with the female role models. So these are some of the strategies for inclusive leadership. And the policy making, there are a lot of policy making approaches and frameworks that could work for inclusion. Like, as I mentioned, the gender mainstreaming is one of the policy approach that the organization could use. And then the capability approach. This is another approach that especially expanding that individual freedom and ability to lead. It will provide the girls the confidence, and also eliminating some of those limitations that they have. Participatory approaches, especially in designing policies itself, listen to the women, get them involved, understand where the problems are. Sometimes, you thinking about women and coming up with a policy may not be the real solution. Working together with them. And one of the other thing is the intersectional framework. There are a lot of overlapping areas, and also like some of them are interconnected, some of them are interdependent issues, like the race, the caste, the religion, the cultures, the traditions. So we need to understand what are these overlapping areas, intersectional pressing challenges for women. Then there are like structural HR political frameworks need to be reviewed. And finally, better monitoring and evaluation frameworks that would support in determining whether the organizations are going in the right path. So women, ladies in this forum, well, I would say it's your turn. Are you ready? Start young, when you're young, you need to acquire not only your education skills and developing the confidence that you need. You are able, you can do this, right? It's not rocket science. It's not a masculine job, as you always see. Women develop their own style of leadership. In my previous organization, I handled around, in the program operations unit, we had over 350 staff, right? So you don't need to be adopting the masculine type of leadership for that. You have your own style. Find your own mechanism to work on that. Focus on the big picture, right? It's the mission, the goal of the organization. Don't just work in your own little box, thinking and doing, okay, this is my 8 to 5 job. Okay, I would finish my job and go home because I have a family to look into. Yeah, the family is important. Never compromise on that. I never compromise on my family obligations. But you looking at the bigger picture and fitting to the organizational mission, and that would help the organization to notice you, right? And then the dignity and respect at work, very important, right? You maintain that and prepare for career climb, especially like coming out of your comfort zone. I never wanted to come out of my comfort zone. I was very happy being a manager, and I struggle. I mean, it's just a mental issue that, for me to think, okay, now I have to step up and I have to do this, right? And then continue to acquire your skills, planning career progress, never stop learning. Think today, what is current, acquire that knowledge. Networking and socialization, this is very important thing. Now, this is one of the things that women actually miss, right? Because old boys network, the men have their opportunities to after work they go and associate with their the other group, so they get the opportunities, the relationships updated. There's a lot of socialization happening, but women after office, they run home. I'm not saying for you to change it, but this is one of the areas that women are at disadvantage. So uh, what do you do to keep up with some of these areas? Then never tolerate sexual harassment. Never take tolerate on those areas. Your professional behavior, maintain your work-life balance, get updated with the current affairs. That's very important for you to be. So there are a lot of success stories that we can think. Each country have their own. Now this is just 4, but we have hundreds of women who challenged their systems and came out of the shackle that they were in. So today we regard them. This is one of the case studies. I don't know whether I have time for this. I may not have time for this, but I'll just give you a very summary of the case study. I would not share the name because I have not got permission, but this is one of the person I actually taken for my thesis as a case study. So she's actually a CEO of a current leading insurance company, I mean, a huge insurance company, and she's in many of the organizational boards and a lot of companies that she's now working for. So she's a single mother with 2 children, and started her career as at the age of 16 and as an auditor. And she got the opportunity to work to get exposed to different companies because as auditor she travels. So what she says is whenever she goes to a new company, she just studied that company, how they manage their systems, what are the strategies that they use, and how they manage this entire thing. But she actually studied and she wanted to be the best tax specialist in the country. But after marriage, she gave up the job. While as being a housewife, she says, I never stopped studying. At that time, IT was a big deal. And I continued studying IT and I got an IT diploma. At that time, her husband actually passed away and she had to come back to job for a job because now she has to support her family, right? So when she came, she had acquired the skills that she during the absence. So she says, like, I was at advantage because it was very rare for somebody to have IT, finance, and marketing the qualifications together. So while she joined an organization and she was very comfortable with that, the pay was okay and the setup was okay, everybody were happy with that. She was very comfortable. But there was a bigger challenge and there was another offer that she got where she says, I wanted to move out of my comfort zone. So she joined the another organization. So likewise, she moved on. And she says, I was very careful after that, the organizations that I would be joining. And at the same time, I wanted to avoid this. A lot of invitations were coming for boards, but I wanted to stay away from this exclusive women boards so that I would be exposed to work with men and women both, and I would acquire what was missing. So she actually, invested a lot of time in mentoring her staff, and she was very empathetic. She had empathetic skills, staff care, listening, and genuinely she committed to her work. Her style of work was accepted, and she was one of the super person to climb up the ladder. So if you, I don't know whether you would be sharing this presentation. If you do take some time and understand, like, what did she do? How did she do that? So that we would understand from that. So I would stop with that. Probably the reflection is, we talk about so much of male dominance, especially related to women in leadership. But today, this is becoming a bit of a diminishing concept. It's women would like to keep it very open, because when you talk about patriarchy, it's not only the men dominate, but the women accept it as and say, it's okay. It's okay for the man to hit me. It's okay for him to have all these rules. I'm not saying that we have conflicts in the house, but the male dominance is also female submission to everything that goes in also there. And then the challenge women have to break the ceiling is mostly arising from invisible system, as we mentioned, that it's not sometimes intentional, but system as such, it facilitates this. And then the internal struggles of the women. And then leadership is as masculine is also becoming a rejected notion. There are a lot of successful women develop their own styles of leadership. So find your style of leadership. Then changing attitudes, especially from males towards female bosses, are very impressive today. Organizations adopting inclusive strategies will support women to step up, and women having confidence, prepare themselves with necessary skills will support break the ceiling. So be the change. Michelle Obama has once said, there is no limit to what we as women can accomplish, right? Mentor one woman and support one leader, we can change the system together. So thank you very much for listening. And I know it took a little time longer.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Nilanka. You indeed provided a clear insight as to these challenges where the women face in leadership and in the different context, and also how they have overcome as well. So you have truly set the tone for what Ignite Talks is all about. So now I would like to humbly ask from you one question. Actually, I had in my mind when you were doing this wonderful presentation, of course. So I'll pose it for you before we move on to the Q&A. So in your view, how can existing social, cultural, or systematic barriers be effectively connected and addressed through such a project?
Yeah. So, it's very interesting. The social, cultural, systematic, they are already interconnected. You cannot just take away one and then deal with another. And also, like, having said that, you need a multifaceted approach to address the same as well. So if you are dealing with a project like that, if you are thinking of a project like that, one of the things is that you need to understand it. So what is the real problem? The cultural, the society, these are very vague and also very high level, very broad terms that we use. What is the exact issue that you have? One of the things that I would recommend is, if you are looking into projects like that, have the integrated problem analysis, right? Understand what are those society, cultural, systematic issues this particular community is grappling with. Sometimes they may differ from one to the other, so you cannot actually bring a cookie cut solution there. So doing that integrated problem mapping would help them to understand what the issue, what is the depth of the issue is. Then working with the community leaders, especially the society, the community leaders and the community, understanding for solutions. Or what would be the family, the teachers, the religious leaders, the community leaders, what sort of solutions do they see? Because they would be eventually challenging, addressing the issues that they are believing right now. So that requires to be changed. Then also like having those cultural sensitive dialogues to understand what are the real implications, what is missing, what do we miss here, do we miss something, do we need to bring certain balances, education, especially awareness campaigns to sort out some of these issues would also help the people to come out of their the mindsets that they're in, because sometimes the lack of education is one of the greatest issue that the people have. Then also like we can go on like looking into policy and institutional reforms and capability, capacity building and empowerment and so on. So the main issue is like before you embark on a project, doing that integrated problem mapping to understand where the problem and designing that problem with the community would help you to implement super projects.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nilakna. I think you're a wonderful mentor who tries to connect the real life examples and statistics and all to our today's session, and that is what Ignite talks about. So I think now I want to thank first of all the participants also who have come here and joined with us through Zoom and YouTube. So we are going to move on to our Q&A session where we hope to now close